Well, we will now hear from our witnesses, and I'm pleased to introduce Dr. Mark Northam, who is the director of the University of Wyoming School of Energy Resources. Prior to his service at the university, he's had extensive research experience in the private sector. Additionally, he's worked as a research science consultant in the areas of carbon management and technical intelligence at the Research and Development Center at Saudi Aramco. Dr. Northam also worked at Mobil and ExxonMobil for over 20 years. There he held a variety of research operations and managerial positions. I want to thank you for your willingness to testify today.
Chairman Barrasso, Ranking Member Carper, and members of the State Committee on Environment and Public Works, thank you for inviting me today to testify on the Utilizing Significant Emissions and Innovative Technologies Act, or USIT Act. Senator Barrasso, thank you for the introduction. You took away the first 10 minutes of my testimony. For those of you who are here to see the other Mark, I think he was here today and he's over in the house today, so sorry if you're disappointed. I came to the university following 26 years in the oil and gas industry. I've had the privilege of working on carbon dioxide utilization and storage issues, technologies, and policies for the bulk of my career. For example, I was a technology leader with the Sleipner CO2 storage project in the Norwegian offshore from its inception. Sleipner CO2 storage facility was the first in the world to inject CO2 into a dedicated subsurface reservoir for the purpose of storage. The Sleipner facility has captured CO2 at the Sleipner area gas development since 1996. The captured CO2 is directly injected into the offshore sandstone reservoir. Nearly a million tons of CO2 is injected per annum, and over 17 million tons has been injected since inception. My work with carbon capture, utilization, and storage continues through the present day at SCR. We continue to, and that's the School of Energy Resources. We continue to conduct important research related to geologic storage of CO2 in saline aquifers and to improve carbon dioxide-motivated enhanced oil recovery operations. SCR's work on, got to move forward. The state of Wyoming is an ideal jurisdiction to advance research and projects related to capturing and utilizing emissions of CO2. For example, the Wyoming legislature provided for the development of an integrated test center to serve as an operational test site for CO2 capture and utilization technology developers. The Wyoming Infrastructure Authority led the development of the site with the support of many private and public sector entities in Wyoming. The ITC will soon host 5 semifinalists of the coal track of the $20 million NRG COSIA Carbon X Prize, a global competition to develop breakthrough technologies that convert CO2 emissions from fossil fuel combustion into products with the highest net value. Competitors in this program are developing processes that utilize CO2 in the production of, for example, enhanced concrete, biofuels, nanotubes, and fertilizers. In fact, the Carbon X Prize finalists were announced Monday evening in New York City, and 5 of these finalists will be operating by the end of this calendar year in Wyoming. Wyoming is also one of a handful of states with existing CO2 pipeline infrastructure to serve an active enhanced oil recovery industry. The state has also planned for future expansion of the network through ongoing efforts of the Wyoming Pipeline Corridor Initiative, primarily for providing CO2 to parts of the state with significant demand for supply. I'm pleased to testify today in support of the USIT Act. My testimony focuses on carbon dioxide utilization section of Title I, which amends Section 103 of the Clean Air Act to authorize the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency to support certain CCUS-related research and development activities by the states, institutions of higher education, and others. Title I of the USIT Act, in part, authorizes the EPA to carry out a research and development program for carbon dioxide utilization to promote technologies that transform carbon dioxide generated by industrial processes into a product of commercial value or as an input to products of commercial value. The bill defines carbon dioxide utilization as technologies or approaches that lead to the use of carbon dioxide through fixation of CO2 through photosynthesis or chemosynthesis, such as through the growing of algae or bacteria, The chemical conversion of CO2 to material or chemical compound which the CO2 is in which the CO2 is securely stored, and the use of CO2 for any other purpose for which a commercial market exists. The EPA is to provide technical and financial assistance to certain eligible CO2 utilization projects with the eligibility criteria including access to an emissions stream from the U.S.-based stationary source that is capable of providing not less than 250 metric tons of CO2 per day. I support these provisions. Not only do they create another source of critically needed funding for the CCUS-related research and technologies, but also they apply to a broad swath of potential CCUS technologies. Eligible technologies include the use of CO2 for any other purpose for which commercial markets exist, which I interpret to include CO2 EOR. Moving to Title II, the Use It Act first explicitly makes certain CCUS-related projects, including CO2 pipelines, subject to the 2015 Fixing America's Surface Transportation Act, or FAST Act. The FAST Act seeks to streamline federal environmental review and permitting, reducing bureaucratic redundancies for certain large infrastructure projects, and second, directs the chair of the White House Council on Environmental Quality in consultation with EPA, DOE, and others to prepare guidance to facilitate reviews associated with deployment of CCUS projects and CO2 pipelines. I support these provisions as well. In addition to financial challenges, CCUS projects face unfortunate headwinds caused by well-intended but nonetheless arguably counterproductive federal policies. These policies include time-consuming reviews under NEPA, which is a specific challenge for states such as Wyoming that have significant areas of federal lands. The Underground Injection Code under the Safe Drinking Water Act also arguably stands as an impediment to CCUS projects due to aspects of the Class 6 CO2 injection storage regulations that are difficult, if not impossible, for the private sector to utilize. Title II of the Use It Act should go some way towards ameliorating these and related challenges facing CCUS projects and technologies. This concludes my testimony. I'm pleased to testify today in support of the Use It Act. The ongoing federal role in supporting CCUS research at institutions of higher education is imperative. Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Carper, and members of the committee, I would be pleased to ask questions that you may have.
Thank you, sir.